Thanks for stopping by the Junction, where we're trying to make connections between Ardmorites. I'm Ardmore Leader News Director Michael Dean Smith, and we're continuing our Ardmore Decides 2026 election coverage this week by interviewing both candidates running for the Ardmore School Board. In the election coming up on April 7th, the Ardmore City Schools Seat 1 is up for election with two candidates vying to represent constituents in an area covering Ardmore's extreme southern portions. They're just east of Commerce Street. Joining us this week is the challenger in that race, Jimmy John. Jimmy, thanks for joining us in the Junction. How are you?
Happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
So just to start, I want to learn a little bit about you. So if you wouldn't mind just kind of introduce yourself, tell us a bit about who you are, what you do. But while doing that, could you also talk about what your interest is in running for the Ardmore School Board?
Absolutely. So again, my name's Jimmy John. No, I don't carry sandwiches with me for anyone who knows the shop. Sorry about that. But a little bit about me. I went to Will Rogers in Franklin whenever I was here. I grew up in foster care, so I bounced around the state all over. Mm-hmm. But whenever I was here, I went to Will Rogers, Franklin, the middle school that's no longer the middle school, and the high school. I went my freshman and junior year here at the high school.
Okay.
Again, grew up in foster care, had the Ardmore community really around me whenever I was growing up. Something that I noted on for a different magazine was I was the first foster kid that went from the shelter to actually go to his junior prom. That's how much the community was really around me, teachers, everybody else. Okay. So that's kind of like reinforced on why I want to do this. I remember what that was like of having that community around me. I'm a veteran. I know how important education is on that aspect. Learning not just technical stuff. I've learned one of my first MOS was a anti-tank missileman. So I knew how to blow stuff up. Then I went to an aviation electrician. So that was a whole different aspect and very technical on what you can't do. Learning the different systems of different aircrafts, and some of them are similar, but their similarities are, we have the same color wire. So that was, taking all of those different aspects, those collaborations from community, how it refined my education, and then moving back in 24 and seeing how that has degraded. That's really hurt me because I know how impactful it was on me. Of any of the over 420,000 youth that have went through foster care, mm-hmm. that having something like that is really important. And education is something that everybody can be a stakeholder in. Everyone, like I've said several times on the campaign trail, everybody's a teacher and everybody's a student. I'm going to learn something whether I want to or not. Just as someone, I'm going to teach someone whether they want to or not. It's just a reciprocal process growing up, being a person.
I want to learn a little bit about some more of your experience with the school district, and especially to what you know about serving on a public body. So what experiences have prepared you for a 5-year term on a publicly elected school board?
So some of the experiences I have, prior to moving back to the Ardmore area, I ran my own company, a multi-million-dollar company out of Australia. It was a foster care company. I was the least paid employee. I made $1. Everybody from my secretary up to the directors, they all made 6 figures. The reason why I did that is because, one, I have my military pension. I can live just fine on that. I'm not a superficial person. I got my puppies, got my house, got my cars, I'm good. Food in my stomach, I'm good. But by having that thinking is also I need to make sure that my employees are taken care of. Being on a board, you're going to have to address that. Is the employees, and from something that I've learned during this campaign, is the morale with Ardmore City Schools is at a low. Teachers feel like they can't go to the board. There's conflicting policy on whether they can go to the board. A board member is that liaison person for all stakeholders, for students, for teachers, for personnel, for parents, for the community. And through my experience from owning my company and, going into retirement and things like that, that has really allowed me to look at things differently, to be able to take this position.
For this question, I want to learn a bit how you would plan on staying connected with the community, whether it comes to staying in touch with those stakeholders, those parents, other constituents. So, I mean, and whether we're talking about some sort of controversy, whether things are fair weather and you're just trying to keep people engaged, how would you make yourself available to community members as a board member?
Glad you asked that. That question actually did come up last night at my meet and greet. I'm not one of those people who's just going to say, hey, elect me, and then disappear, and you only see me every third Tuesday or third Thursday or whatever the schedule may be. This past month, I went to the Black History Awareness and Celebration at the HFV. I attend as many events as I can. One, I do have the opportunity since I am already retired. I'm a very young retired person, so I still have a lot of life left into me. So being engaged with the public, like I said last night, invite me somewhere. I'll show up. But it takes a back and forth. The community has to engage and I have to engage. Often that is as simple as just an invite. But as far as me personally, and something that I've said on the campaign is that involvement, because I've seen that at a record low, in my opinion, of the community engagement. I think that going to and being involved like the Martin Luther King Parade, having a float in the Christmas parade or whatever other parades we may have, doing small things just as an individual and letting all of Ardmore see we have a board member we can see, we can touch, we can grasp and say, hey, I have a question. And I'm not going to be so arrogant to say I have all the answers. I don't. But I'm not afraid to say I don't have the answers, but I can get you whatever answer I can find. And again, that's that back and forth dialogue. So engage with me. I'll engage with you. You don't want to engage with me. I'm still going to let you know I'm here for you.
Okay. I want to hear now for this question some of your thoughts on the district's current board, the district's current school, or the school's current appointed and hired leadership, considering a board member's role in overseeing those kind of positions. So what are some of the challenges that you currently see the district facing, and how do you feel that leadership is responding to those challenges?
One of the challenges I see that the current administration is running rampant with is zero financial controls. It seems like the board has just said, here's a blank check, run with it, see what you can do. And it's kind of one of those things of we're going to throw money at it and see what sticks. Whether it works or not is a different question. There's extravagant spending. I say that we have a tractor that was just purchased by the school board. It's supposed to be used for the stadium, for the turf. It doesn't have the appropriate tires. That's going to cost us an additional amount. We didn't need that tractor. We bought 2 other vehicles. We don't need those vehicles. So we're spending frivolously, and then the superintendent's suite is one of the most secure within the school district, if not the most secure. What happened to securing and the safety of our students? That needs to be priority, not the superintendent. The return of investment for what the superintendent makes for here in Ardmore. His salary compensation package is over $200,000. We're not seeing our return. We have a D grade level on our report card. Whenever I was in school here at Ardmore, we had a B+. Why have we allowed things to change over the past 20 years so drastically? And I think that through some of the policies I intend to introduce, we can raise that back up. One of the policies I wholeheartedly feel about is sports, extracurricular activities, band, choir, all of those. Is to be a part of them, you have to maintain a minimum of a 2.0. My philosophy and the policy that I think would be more beneficial is you can join those organizations, those groups, those clubs at a 2.0. But you can't suit up, you can't perform, you can't do any of that unless you're a 3.0. Let's, as the current slogan is, raise the bar. Well, then let's not say it as a slogan. Let's actually put words into action. Let's raise that bar. I'm not saying you have to be perfect. You have to have a 4.0. But we need to raise that bar than the bare minimum.
You had mentioned a specific policy that you would like to kind of see implemented. For this next question, I actually want to ask a little bit about what you would hope to accomplish during a 5-year term on the school board. So let's kind of time travel for a little bit. Let's go to 2031. Be wrapping up your first 5-year term. What does the school district look like at that time?
My first 5-year term, I intend to make sure that the board rebuilds some of the relationships that are broken. Some of the relationships with Chickasaw Nation, for example, is so strained and broken that we have to turn down money from them. For what reason? I can't fully back from what I know of them. I think that at the end of that term, I would also like to see the morale of our teachers drastically improved. I would like to see the morale of our students and our grades improved. You can't say that we don't have the stuff in our grasp. We have a student who's been accepted to MIT. We have students going to college. We have the foundation essentials. We're not utilizing them correctly, in my opinion. I also think that we need to have, for the overall stakeholders, the tax-paying stakeholders, the parents, the community stakeholders that donate money, we need to have a clear financial transparency of, if we budget, I'm just throwing out a snowball figure here, $1 million for transportation. We keep that $1 million in transportation and we're not robbing it throughout the year to where transportation can't buy basic supplies, which is happening now. We're taking from different line items to where if you look at a budget on how it's presented, that's not how it's being used. Perfect example is the maintenance. Why aren't maintenance things being done that should be done and kept up with our budget? This is a huge thing because right before Christmas break, we had to start a day early because of a gas leak. And it kind of trickled into the new start of this year. And then here most recently, we had the water leak at the middle school, I believe. Mm-hmm. We have so many things that I would also like to see at that end of, we're using the youth and the students to give back to our community just as much as the stakeholders. How is that going to happen? Well, we have students that go to the VOTEC. They're learning great skills. Electrician, HVAC, carpentry, CNA work. If I cut my finger, I'm going to a nurse. That's just how I am. But things like that. So why don't we have some of those students get their grade by building with our school? Bring that pride back to Ardmore of what it is to really be an Ardmore Tiger. Let's have those Ardmore Tigers back throughout the community. That pride, that overwhelming privilege of whenever I was in school, Ardmore was the school you wanted to go to in southern Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. We can bring that back, and that's what I want to see the push to at the end of my first term.
Okay. And then for the final question for you, I'm going to kind of change gears drastically. I want to learn a little bit more about you and less about the candidate. So let's kind of clear what we've been talking about, and I want to think about art, whether we're talking about a specific piece of art, a medium, like a video game, TV, piece of music, whatever, just art in general.
Okay.
What is a piece of art that you like, or a medium you like, and why do you appreciate it? My
biggest is music. I know you said switch candidates head, but it's really intertwined for me. Whenever I was in high school, I had Mrs. Stone at Ardmore Middle School as my choir director. I had Mrs. Riggle at Ardmore High School. I was never a soloist. Chances are I was only here hit and miss because of foster care, waiting placement, being moved around, things like that. But that allowed me a voice. I may not have been the most perfect voice. I'm not even going to say I was anywhere close. But feeling a beat, feeling the melody, looking at notes. Don't ask me to read sheet music. I will fail that test left and right. But looking at that and seeing how it made its own motion and you're using your own voice to bring it into action. So music, and even today, whenever I'm at the house, I have music on more than I have any streaming service on. In my car, the first thing I do is I'm about my music before anything else. I go on just rides. I have a motorcycle in my cars, and whenever I throw my helmet on, my music's going. That is my decompression. But it's also my inspiration for a lot of things. If you listen to certain music, you can listen to the lyrics, and if you actually listen to the lyrics, you will find out what it's about and how that relates to you or relates to other people in your life that you know that have an impact.
All right, Jimmy John, he's the candidate for the Ardmore City Schools Board of Education, Seat 1. Jimmy, thank you so much for joining us in the Junction this week for the conversation.
Thank you for having me.